Hey everybody, in today's video I'm going to show you how to edit the Logic Drums to Anything script, the included one for Addictive Drums 2, so that it could work in a different Addictive Drums 2 kit. So I wrote that example script using the Studio Drums Hard Rock kit. So it's important for you to know what you would have to do to get the script to work for a different ADPack and a different kit preset. So this video is going to go into all those details.
Good. Now Delta, if you can identify yourself.
First, a review of the original Addictive Drums 2 script that I have included, just so you understand the kind of general things you need to be aware of. So for the example script, I used the Studio Rock ADPack and just this hard rock preset. I just randomly picked something because there's no core library in Addictive Drums 2, so I had to choose something. Go to MIDI mapping. Always make sure you're using 82 standard. There's no need to choose general MIDI or anything else in here. And also under CC hi-hat, I don't make any changes anywhere in here, or positional settings for snare, ride, chokes. Keep that all the same. From kit to kit, this note layout stays the same. What changes is things like which cymbals or what, whether it's a regular cymbal hit or a China or whatever. And the flexi hits change quite a bit between presets, but the actual MIDI note names are the same. So if we go to kit, this particular kit has a lot of cymbals already. It has a China, a splash, a cymbal 5, and if you play them, you can get an idea of where they are in the stereo space. So the cymbal 1 is kind of to the left, same as cymbal 5, whereas cymbal 2 is more to the right, and then 3 is the China, 4 is splash, and there's a cowbell loaded. But if we go into scripter, so I've loaded the script already. This is the one included with the download. If I open it up and look at the Logic notes, Logic has a few percussion kind of hits. So in addition to the cowbell, there are hand claps, tambourine, shaker. So one thing you can do is you can use the flexi slots to add these additional hits. So I'm going to add a tambourine to flexi 2 under extras, tamb LP. And then for flexi 3, I'm going to add some hand claps. Also under extras, actually that's under triggers, trig clap. And if I go to MIDI mapping, I click on flexi hit 1, there's that cowbell. It's only in flexi 1 hit A. There's nothing in B, C, and D. And then for that flexi hit 2 where we added the tambourine, that has something in flexi 2 hit A, C, and D. Nothing in B. Flexi hit 3, the claps. So that's in flexi 3 hit A, B, C, and D are empty. So those are the specifics of this kit. And if we go to scripter, notice how at the top of a script, I always specify what the script was written for. In this case, Addictive Drums 2, Studio Rock, that hard rock kit. And then from script to script, when you're going from Logic to another library, these initial variables, this variable here will stay the same. That's how Logic handles its opening and closing of hi-hats with that CC control of 4. And this is how Addictive Drums handles its CC control for hi-hats, snare position control, and then position control for rides 1 and 2. And I determine these breakpoints just by experimenting, listening, seeing where those changes are made. And that's all based on the fact that I didn't do anything with these breakpoints here. And this variable L, those are the Logic notes. Those won't change from script to script unless you are manually making changes in Logic and you want different notes to do different things. And also remember, Logic has various percussive hits. This variable UN typically doesn't change. That's user-defined notes. So in Logic you can have a snare, flam, or roll, even though Logic itself doesn't have those articulations. The script can let you assign unused notes to do that, to trigger those kind of sounds in a target library. Likewise, the script allows you to have various cymbal hits or ride choke, even though Logic doesn't have that. You can still use it and it'll trigger in a target library. Likewise for things like China, splash. And in the interface, you can change these values. You just have to click on Show Advanced Stuff. That gives you additional options. So click on User Cymbal Notes, for instance. And if you don't want your ride choke being there at C-1, you don't have to change it here. You can just change that here in the GUI. Likewise with these other user notes, if you want to add some other stuff, you would add the notes here. You can change the assignments here. So that's a useful feature. And so here is variable T. This corresponds to the 82 standard MIDI map. And so these names are going to be the same from kit to kit. So you don't have to make any changes on this left side. Sometimes you might want to make some notes here. For instance, in the example script, symbol 3 is the China, symbol 4 is the splash, like I showed moments ago. And then here are the entries for percussion. If you didn't have anything loaded in Flexi, you could just as well replace these names. So cowbell could be Flexi 1, hit A, and then this tambourine hit would be Flexi 2, hit A, then likewise. But I specify the actual names based on what I actually have loaded here.
What you see on the table in front of you is the Strabo map of the entire road network of the Roman Empire.
And then here's where we specify the mapping. So Logic's kicks go to the kick here. Addictive Drums 2, here's how the snares map. In Addictive Drums 2, I tend to notice that kicks and snares are pretty stable across presets, so you shouldn't really need to do anything here. Then here specifying some flam, ruff, and roll notes in Logic to trigger those kind of sounds. In Addictive Drums 2, even though it doesn't have those sounds, we can use MIDI trickery to produce those with this flam, etc. parameter. And then speaking of trickery, the way hi-hats are set up in the script, there's a long backstory here. I had to do a lot of reverse engineering. It's kind of crazy how Logic handles hi-hats internally, but the bottom line is the script will translate Logic's opening and closing of hi-hats to the target library, which is one of the most important features of the script.
This was divine intervention.
And it does that with these entries. And from kit to kit in Addictive Drums 2, you never have to touch that. This just has Logic's tip articulations. They're going to map into tip articulations in Addictive Drums 2. Shanks are going to map to bell, because I thought those sounded sonically a bit similar. Logic doesn't have a bell. And then Logic's edge most closely matches, at least to my ears, the shaft sounds in Addictive Drums 2. So as these are opening and closing in Logic, they're also going to open and close in Addictive Drums 2. Logic has 3 toms. Across kits in Addictive Drums 2, I tend to notice there seems to always be 4, but I don't know, maybe sometimes there are 3. In any case, this is how I map those, so you don't necessarily have to change anything here from kit to kit. In the user guide and some of the previous longer videos go into great detail in all the specifics of mapping. For instance here, this is just saying Logic's Tom 2 is going to map to the Tom 4 open hit or the Tom 4 rim shot hit, with the open hits being 2 times more likely. This is just one way to get those additional articulations in Addictive Drums into the game, because Logic doesn't have those. There are other ways you could get those in the game. If you look at the detailed overview videos or read the manual, that'll make more sense. The rides should be pretty stable between presets. You get to see a preset that has a ride 2. But if you added a ride 2, you would just have additional settings. So then the question would be, how do you map Logic's 1 ride to 2 rides? So you could use similar techniques to how we're mapping the toms. Logic doesn't have a ride choke, but we can use that user-defined ride choke, and so that'll trigger choking in Addictive Drums 2. And in the GUI, you can make some changes to how choking works. For instance, under cymbal settings, this says when there's a Logic choke note, how do you want to trigger that in the target library? Well, a library like Addictive Drums 2, it reacts to poly aftertouch as well as just a choke note, so you could choose target choke note. By default, it'll be aftertouch, but you can change that in the GUI and not make any changes here. And here, Logic's left is mapping to symbol 1 or symbol 5, because these symbols, 1 and 5, they're kind of in the leftish part of the field. And then Logic's right crash is mapping to symbol 2, because that's kind of towards the right part of the stereo field in Addictive Drums 2. And these symbols also have choke notes. And then similarly with the China and splash, using those unused notes to trigger those kind of sounds. So the China is that symbol 3, splash is that symbol 4. And likewise with those choke articulations, so everything's consistent. And then the mapping of the Logic percussion over to Addictive Drums 2, based on how we set up those flexi hits. And then these 2 entries specify the foot close and foot splash. These are just needed for automatic close and splash detection from CC data. It's a more advanced feature of the script that most people will probably never use. So that's what that is. So always hit run script just to be safe. I think once you've done it once, and then you save a project, reopen a project, you don't have to do that. Anyway, I tend to just do it all the time. And the important thing is that there are no errors or some warnings. I'm being told that there's some hi-hat articulations not mapped to, but the way things work is based on what Logic is doing. Certain hi-hat CC control notes are going to be triggered, and then internally, based on the CC values that the script is sending over to Addictive Drums 2, Addictive Drums 2 is indeed going to be triggering these various hi-hat samples. So that's a misleading warning. So now what I have here is Logic Drummer, and I've set it so that some regions will produce some percussion, so claps here, tambourine here, shaker here, And then I had another drummer part here that I converted to a MIDI region, and I just modified this, so I added some cowbell sounds. Oddly enough, it's strange, I can't figure out how to force this to add cowbell. It's like they specifically don't want you to want more cowbell. It's strange, because there might be times when you actually do want more cowbell. So I've just manually added the cowbell hits, and also manually added a china and a splash hit. That way you can see what happens when you try to use the included script with a different Addictive Drums 2 ADPack. So now I'll play back. So now let's talk about what you need to do in order to use a different 82 ADPack and to have everything work as needed. Now back in Addictive Drums 2, this time I'm going to go to the United Heavy ADPack and just choose, say, this dry punch kit. And also go to MIDI mapping and make sure that 82 standard is chosen. And just like before, all this stuff here is going to stay default. Nothing changes here. MIDI note names are the same. Now go to kit and notice we don't have a Cymbal 4 or 5. We have this Fluxy 1 with this crasher, nothing in Fluxy 2 and 3. In between presets in a given ADPack, these will vary quite a bit, especially here. Notice how, depending on which preset you have, there's different things going on in Fluxy 2 and 3. In some ADPacks, you would see a lot of variation in the cymbals between presets. Here they seem pretty stable. Cymbal 3 is always this china, but that's just kind of a happy accident. It's not always that way. So in this case, that's Cymbal 3, just like in the default included script for Addictive Drums 2. That's a china. Here it's also a china. Cymbal 1 is kind of in the left stereo fields. Cymbal 2 kind of to the right. So it's good to take notes of what a kit has, so that as you go over to the script editor, you can readily know what you have to do. But first, we're not even going to edit the script. We're just going to keep it as is. So I have scripter loaded on this track here. I'm just going to open script, hit run, close that, and play it back. And you're going to notice that we're not going to get output in Addictive Drums 2 when it comes time to hear things like the clap and the cowbell. Now notice there's no clap being played. And here there's no percussion. China, we didn't hear the splash, and we didn't hear any cowbell. So remember, this logic part is actually producing percussion, and wouldn't it be nice to actually have that playing back in Addictive Drums 2?
That's not a movie. You gotta go back, put in the drama.
So now let's go to this track, go to scripter, and I'm going to save this. I'm just going to give it a different name. So this is the version of the script I'll be working on right now. And I like to open the default version as well so I can see both. So I'll just notate here that this is not Studio Rock, it's United Heavy. And I forget the name of that kit, it had the word dry in it, so for now that'll be good enough. This doesn't change between presets, between kits. This is just the logic breakpoints for opening and closing hi-hats. This also doesn't change between kits and Addictive Drums 2. All this business with hi-hats and snare and ride position control should stay the same unless you make changes. By the way, if you did make changes in Addictive Drums 2 and you were messing with those breakpoints here, you would have to figure out at what CC values do those breakpoints change. So for the very adventurous of you, that's something you might have to deal with. Logic notes aren't changing, user-defined notes aren't changing, and the note names, this variable T is for the target library, and so this is Addictive Drums 2. So these note names don't change, they're the same from kit to kit, as long as you're using the standard MIDI map in Addictive Drums. It's 82 map. But remember, we don't have a splash, so there's no use in having this comment to ourselves. In a bit, I'll show you how to get that splash added in a given Addictive Drums 2 kit. But for now, we're just gonna assume it's using cymbals 1, 2, and 3. And regarding percussion, depending on what's already happening in the Addictive Drums 2 kit, you might decide that you like what it already has loaded in a flexi slot. But let's just say for purposes of this video that we're gonna make changes here so that they're more similar to the default script. So I'm gonna go to this dry punch kit, and for flexi 1, I'm gonna have that be the cowbell. Flexi 2, I'm gonna go under extras and have that be the tambourine. For flexi 3, go into triggers, and I'm gonna choose the clap and go back to the script. And that way we'll know that everything's going to be the same in terms of those percussion hits. Now we get on to the mapping. From kit to kit, the kicks and snares tend to stay the same, so no changes to make here. And because this is an overview video, I'm not going to talk about some of these mapping details. That's all covered in the manual, as well as the previous videos that go into a lot of detail. Nothing changes here. We're going to use these user-defined notes in Logic the same way. That gives you the ability to trigger flam, ruff, and roll hits in Addictive Drums 2 using this flam, etc. parameter. Nothing changes with the hi-hats. We still use this mapping, which I know might look super confusing, but trust me, this is the black magic that gets everything to work. With toms, nothing changes. Both kits in Addictive Drums 2 have 4 toms, so Logic's 3 are mapping to 4, and this is one of several ways to do that. Addictive Drums has rim shot and regular hits, so there are various ways you could use a script to get rim shots triggered. This is one way. The script also supports articulation switching, which is another way. Now with the rides, Logic has 1 ride, and most Addictive Drums 2 kits have 1 ride loaded, so you shouldn't have to make any changes here. But if you did add a second ride in Addictive Drums 2, then you would have to figure out how to map Logic's 1 ride to 2 in Addictive Drums 2, and you could do that using the script's features such as going from 1 to several in a mapping. Now Logic doesn't have a ride choke, but we're using a user-defined ride choke note in Logic that'll trigger ride choking in Addictive Drums 2. By the way, Addictive Drums 2 supports poly aftertouch choking as well as just regular choke notes. So by default, the script is set up to assume poly aftertouch. You could change that in the GUI if you wanted to. Click Show Advanced Stuff under Translate Choke Note. You can change that to Target Choke Note. If you chose Channel Aftertouch, it wouldn't work because Addictive Drums 2 does not support choking via Channel Aftertouch, only poly aftertouch or a choke note. And then on to the cymbals. So remember, we're not using that crash 5 in this particular kit. So for Logic's left crash, we're just going to map to the cymbal 1 in Addictive Drums 2, so we don't have to use this 1 to several mapping. This :2 notation, that's for weights, for likelihood of occurrence. So before we were saying cymbal 1 would be 2 times more likely than cymbal 5. Here we don't need that, so it's just going to look like this. And likewise for the choke, we don't need that cymbal 5, cymbal 1. Logic cymbal right is going to still go to the cymbal 2 in Addictive Drums 2, so that stays the same. Likewise, the choke, everything stays the same. And the China stays the same. That's going to cymbal 3 like it was before. That's just by luck. You could easily change that here. And then there isn't a splash in that particular kit, so you could just comment these lines out. A little later, I'll show you how to add that into any particular kit. And the percussion stuff is going to be mapped the same way. And that's it. So very few changes, actually. And I'm going to hit Run Script. Important thing is there are no errors. Sometimes in editing you might make a typo, so maybe I added an extra S to cowbells, because I love cowbells. Now I hit Run Script. There's an error.
Run sequence.
Because we didn't spell cowbells that way in the target articulation list, we didn't have that S, so it notices that inconsistency and tells you to get your act together and fix it. So now Run Script, now we're back in business. And by the way, if you had an error and hit Run Script, notice how the GUI changes. You see that there are errors, and it tells you the gist of the error, though the details are always in the output here. So you fix the error, and now notice the GUI shows you all these additional settings. So that's kind of a visual way in the GUI to know that things are good to go. And I'm going to close it. Now I'll hit play, and you should notice things like the cowbell sounding, shaker, hand claps. you hear those claps. You hear the shaker was happening. Then you heard the cowbell, but you didn't hear a splash.
Are you employed, Mr. Lebowski?
Employed?
So I'm going to show you what to do here in Addictive Drums 2 if you want things to be more similar to the default script. So it's pretty easy. For cymbal 4, I'm just going to add a splash, say this 10-inch one. Cymbal 5, I'm going to add another crash cymbal that is towards the left part of the stereo field, and I happen to know that this one is a good choice. And now, with that change made, there's no need in uncommenting out the note we had about cymbal 4 being the splash, and there would have been no need to make any changes here. So in that case, we actually could have used the original script with 0 editing. It's always good to save your work, so I saved that modified version, but now I'm just going to reload the default script that had no edits. Hit run script and play back again. That time the splash hit. Well, let's do a different example that'll be one a little more complicated, but it's still going to be relatively easy and straightforward. I'm back in Addictive Drums 2, and this time I'm in the Modern Jazz Sticks ADPack, and I just chose some kit here, overhead with compression. We go to kit, here we see what it has. So here the cymbal 3 is not a China, and so I like to hit each one and just see where it is in the stereo field. So this one towards the right, cymbal 2 is towards the left, cymbal 3 is towards the left. We have cowbell in flexi 1, and now in flexi 2, let's do what we did moments ago where we added the tambourine. Flexi 3, we'll add the clap. This might not make sense for a jazz kit, so you don't have to necessarily add these, but I'm just showing you how. Here's MIDI mappings 82 standard as needed. Close out of there. And here I've loaded the default script. I'm going to save it. Open that up and have the default script in view as well. And so as before, we don't have to edit any of the initial stuff there in the script, apart from just making a note on what it is. So this is Modern Jazz Sticks, and what was the name of that kit? Something with overhead and compression in the title. Nothing changes, and the logic notes, the defined notes stay the same, and the target notes stay the same. The only thing we have to do is just make some mental notes. So crash 3 is not a China, it's just a crash in the right part of the field. Same thing with crash 2. Or rather, those were left. Crash 1 was right. No splash. It's no big deal that we have these and they're not doing anything in Addictive Drums 2 because we're not going to map them, so nothing will get triggered there anyway. We went ahead and added the percussion. If you didn't, it wouldn't be a big deal because you just wouldn't map them. So now here we are in the mapping. Kick, snare, all that stuff stays the same. Hi-hats, everything the same. Tom's the same, ride the same. And all we do down here is left, that was crash 2 and 3. So we just change this from cymbal 1 to cymbal 2. And this one from cymbal 5 to cymbal 3. For its choke, we just add here 2 and 3. For the right, this particular kit, it's not cymbal 2, it's cymbal 1. Also change the choke. We're using a China or a splash. So if you want, you can just add a comment block, just /, and then the star symbol. And then undo that comment block with a star symbol / and then I'm gonna hit save, run, and there are no errors, so that's good. So now we can play this back. Now the clap's gonna come in. And the tambourine. And then the shaker. We're hearing the cowbell. But we didn't hear a splash or a crash as expected. So now let's say you wanted to modify this so that you had things a little more similar to before. For cymbal 4, we'll add that splash. For cymbal 5, we'll make it this crash 19 towards the left in the stereo field. And 3, we'll switch that to be a China. We'll swap these, so cymbal 1 will become this paste mellow, and then this one will become that minor. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, I'm not a drummer, so forgive me. So now we have cymbal 1 and 5 are towards the left in the stereo field, cymbal 2 is towards the right, we have a China and a splash. And just for those changes, I'm just going to open a different instance of Scripter here. We could go back to just the default script. Hit run script. I'm going to mute this other version. Make sure you don't have two running at the same time. And now I'll play it back. You're hearing the clap. The tambourine. And the shaker. And then we heard the chime, the splash, the cowbell. So that's it. Hopefully you see the light at the end of the tunnel now, the various ways to go about doing this kind of editing. One is you take the kit as it is, and then you conform the script to fit everything it has in terms of crash cymbals or whatever, percussion. The other way is you make the changes in Addictive Drums 2 so that the script already makes sense. So in this case, you're conforming Addictive Drums 2 and keeping the script the same. And in the end, what you do is going to depend on how you plan on using Addictive Drums 2. But now you should understand how to do this kind of editing and to not be afraid to go into the script, open it up. As you saw in these examples, it's not as complicated as it might seem at first. And hopefully now you appreciate what the script can do for your drum production workflow. And hopefully you agree it's a pretty awesome thing to be able to do. So until next time.